Leeds United are set to face off against Chelsea in the FA Cup tonight, and that is a massive rivalry, absolutely huge, but many people don't actually know the source of it. Neither did I, I'll be completely honest with you, until I took a little bit of a deep dive, and it's time for me to sort of demonstrate that deep dive to you. Yes, it's something I'll be doing a little bit more of because I just think it's a little bit interesting to look into the history of Leeds or get a little bit more into sort of ongoing topics of the day. So, first up, we need to talk about the origins of this rivalry, and it's back in 1952. Leeds United played against Chelsea in the FA Cup, and it was, to put it bluntly, violent. It was a match that took 2 replays, and there were 7 first-team injuries for Chelsea. But after 3 games of football, Leeds United eventually lost the fixture 5-1, and that sort of sparked a little bit of a rivalry, sparked significant anger on both sides because Leeds United felt they should have potentially done better than they did. Chelsea felt that they were incredibly angry at the fact that it was just a lot of kicking, but that's sort of what happens when you're playing football in that era. And that ultimately kicked things off, and things absolutely did not calm down in the Revie years. Of course, it includes that era. Why wouldn't it include that era? That's the era in which we were known as Dirty Leeds, and there was a sort of dichotomy going. Is it dichotomy that I'm aiming for here? Anyway, there were 2 sides of a discussion where Leeds were seen as these hard, northern, rugged blokes, and then Chelsea were the, as we now come to know them, soft southern bastards. The 2 sides absolutely despised each other. They would play time and time and time again in the Premier League, or the First Division as it was known at the time. And for context, the hatred was so strong that Jack Charlton had something famously known as his Black Book. A book full of players that he would actively search for revenge against on the pitch, kick them incredibly hard, try and injure them, knock them out of the game. 2 players were at the top of Jack Charlton's Black Book. That's the extent to which he was a very unhappy, angry, kicky guy when it came to Chelsea. And that was sort of the basis for what was going on, because you could tell in every single match there was a lot of brutality, a lot of violence, a lot of attempts to physically get the most of the other side. And there were a string of incredibly vicious matches all the way throughout the 1970s that culminated in the FA Cup final. This FA Cup final happened in 1970 at the old version of Wembley. At least the first leg of it did, because Leeds United led twice. They played a lot better than their opponents, but a very, very late equaliser led to the match being a 2-2 draw, which you'd think, at least in the modern era, that's going to give you extra time, penalties, we're going to finish things on the day. Not the case at the time. At the time, you could have replay after replay after replay and just keep playing football until one of you won, which led to both sides not wanting to lose, which led to even more defensive brutality on both sides. And it did ultimately lead... Come on, words. It did ultimately lead to a replay, but I want to see if you can guess exactly where. Because I saw this and absolutely couldn't believe it, because it felt incredibly daft to put the FA Cup final replay here rather than just keep it at Wembley. Give you a couple of seconds to guess. Whilst you're taking this moment, just subscribe and like the video. That'd be massively appreciated. Cheers. Yeah, they decided to play the game at Old Trafford, home of Manchester United, who at this time were also colossal rivals with Leeds United, which obviously Leeds United not the happiest with it. We are playing one of our biggest rivals at the time in a ground that is normally home to our other biggest rivals at the time, and that further sparked the animosity. It meant that everyone was incredibly pissed off going into the match, and it meant that things were absolutely not going to simmer down and stay gentle. And this replay, for a pretty good reason, has been described as one of the dirtiest matches ever. And you might not believe me. You might think, well, it can't be that bad. It's an FA Cup match. It's not going to be that brutal. It's a final. You'd imagine a referee would get hold of it. The first video I found when I searched for this FA Cup final simply had the name Bloodbath in it. So I'm going to just quickly run through it. The number of just crunching tackles you see here, time after time after time. I think the next one is just, not the next one, this one, just a straight scissor challenge. Yep, okay, sure. And it just keeps on going. The number of times you'd think in the modern game, that's not just a foul, that's probably a red card. And I hadn't seen this video all the way through, so I think we just watch it together. And it's just, there we go, cheeky little punch. Another cheeky little fight, slide tackle, bit brutal, chucks him on the ground, incredibly late from behind. That'll do it. It's not the friendliest game of football, as you can very, very visibly see. It is horrifically dirty. He just got kicked in the head. And there was more. I saw the screen go to black and I thought it was done. Apparently not. That looks like a fun one. This really puts modern football in context, doesn't it? Jesus. Yeah. So, as you can see, definitely deserved the title of one of the dirtiest matches ever, and I completely agree. And a modern day referee, I think it was David Elleray, said that after watching the entire match back, he would have given 6 red cards and 20 yellow cards. Now, a new thing on the list of things that you probably won't be able to guess: how many cards did the referee give throughout both fixtures combined? Complete stab in the dark. He gave 1, and it was in the first leg. All that stuff that I just showed you was second leg stuff. And a journalist at the time said, at times it appeared that Mr. Jennings would give a free kick only on the production of a death certificate. That's how brutal Leeds United versus Chelsea can get, and did get throughout the 1970s. And it isn't something that necessarily calmed down, and that FA Cup final itself was eventually won 2-1 in extra time. And the anger that was caused by that match was so severe that Jack Charlton left the ground without picking up his runners-up medal. He said he wasn't too bothered about losing. He was angrier about losing to them. And that unhappiness has remained since. And it leads us to today, where Leeds United and Chelsea will keep singing songs about each other that are not the friendliest. And they will keep having these brutal matches where there's just a lot of kicking. And that's why I'm so happy that last season, even though it was an absolute nightmare, we got a nice 3-0 win over Chelsea because it felt good. It felt different. It felt like something unique. And we have the opportunity to put sort of a new stamp on the Leeds United versus Chelsea rivalry. I've discussed a lot about the FA Cup so far, and that's where a lot of this rivalry's come from in the first place, to the extent that Leeds United haven't beaten Chelsea in the FA Cup before. They've faced each other 8 times. 3 draws, 5 Chelsea wins. This is where Leeds can start to turn things around, start to get a little bit more control over this rivalry, and with Chelsea in this sort of shaken state, make history by beating them in the FA Cup. I know it doesn't look great. I know that we're more focused on the Championship, but it would be absolutely wonderful if we could just sort of do this. If we could get through to the quarterfinals, I'm not too bothered beyond that. But the idea that we can win it would just add a little bit more to what is already a fantastic season. But really, I want to know what you think in the comments down below. Like the video if you enjoyed, subscribe. You can even become a channel member if you really like the content. And I will be seeing you later. You see, this is where the people that stick around, I kind of want to trick the people that didn't. So just sort of put something in the comments that's like, whoa, I can't believe that fact at the end. And it'll just sort of like trick them into sticking beyond the whole outro bit. That'd be quite funny. I want to see if it gets anyone. Anyway, see you later.